Hey Gooners, this is Alan Smith.
This is Kevin Campbell.
Lee Dixon.
Colin Lewin.
It's Gary Lewin.
Charles Watts.
Dan Potts.
James Benge.
Danny.
Tom from the Gooner Talk here.
Ryan O'Cross.
Simon Collins. You may know me from the Evening Standard.
You may know me for my time at Arsenal.
You may know me from Arsenal or even the hybrid squad.
I'm a Birdcat Wonderland.
Being that physio sat on the bench next to Arsenal with my rubber gloves on.
The former Arsenal physio.
The Emirates press box, from writing, from Twitter.
From goal.com, from Twitter, from YouTube.
Football is the beautiful game and it brings us all together.
Sometimes there are things even more important than wins and losses.
And yes, even transfers.
Every 30 seconds, someone in this world gets diagnosed with blood cancer.
The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society works towards curing blood cancers
and provides support to families currently dealing with these diseases.
Gooners vs Cancer was started in 2017
by a lifelong Gooner who lost his father to leukemia way too young.
Since 2017, Gooners v Cancer has raised
over $75,000 for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
And we need your help to keep the fundraising going in this year's campaign.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
No matter the size.
And every donation enters you into the Gooner raffle,
where you have a great chance to win amazing Arsenal prizes,
including game tickets, stadium tours,
signed men and women's shirts,
and maybe a retro signed shirt by yours truly, Lee Dixon.
Me, yours truly.
Yours truly, Super Kev Campbell.
So much more.
It's easy to take part.
Just go to www.goonersvcancer.com
and donate directly to the charity.
Pick the raffle prizes you want to enter to win,
and wait for the drawings at the end of the campaign.
Again, that's www.goonersversuscancer.com.
We all know that victory grows out of harmony.
Victory grows out of harmony.
Victory grows out of harmony.
With your help, we'll be victorious against blood cancer once and for all.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your support.
Thanks for your support.
Thanks for your support.
Thank you for your support.
All right. Well, we are off to a good start.
Almost a tight 60 minutes, as close as we could ever get, being that you and I are in charge of this thing.
Well, frankly, I believe that we, as we were told by many people, we started about 4 minutes late. So that was actually a very tight 60 minutes. I just got a text from Clive. He's a couple minutes late, so he'll be in just a second. But we're going to bring in our next guest, who is somebody who I've had the pleasure of sharing a stage with recently. I don't know what Tom was thinking in doing that, but a very, very, very nice guy, someone who has been very successful in his endeavors recently. Fantastic Gooner. FK, it's lovely to see you, mate. Thank you for joining us on hour 2 of 27.
Mike, Jared, what a pleasure to be here. What a pleasure. I just tuned in to the first hour, explosive start, 2 headliners, and now you're stuck with me. But listen, I love what you guys do. 26 hours to go. Bravo to you, man. I salute you. And if anybody's watching, do of course go and kick cancer or help kick cancer. Goonersversuscancer.com.
Thank you. I mean, and while Gab and Jules are great first guests, they don't do Twitter Spaces after Arsenal games. So I mean, you're kicking their ass in that department.
That's very kind of you.
So yes, your formal introduction, and we'll vamp a little bit until Clive gets here. But he's the host of the outstanding podcast called The Latte. You know, I write these, so I have to now read the bit as though I haven't already introduced you, but. He's the host of the outstanding podcast called The Latte Firm. He's appeared over the years on multiple podcasts, prolific on Twitter, where he now hosts weekly post-game Twitter Spaces with a huge following. Recently was a guest panelist on one of the hottest live podcasts to ever hit London. And I have proof of that right here. Where is it? There we go. We were the bookends to that podcast, which that picture accurately shows. And while we couldn't see any of the people because of the bright lights who were in the crowd, this picture actually cuts through all of that. But yeah, so welcome to the Podathon, FK. And now I used to say FK Hanaj, but it's F Carnage.
That's it. Yeah, thank you so much for your kind words, Mike. Honestly, it's a privilege to be able to join you tonight on this special show that you do. And yeah, to join Tom was also just a personal honor. You know, Tom, I followed Tom for a long time. I love his work. His dedication to what he does is phenomenal. You know that, I know that. And the people who came, you know, people who took time out of their busy schedules to come and see us and hear us talk about Arsenal, I cannot be more grateful. So thank you so much for having me on. And yeah, Latte Firm is just slowly taking off. So really enjoying that at the moment.
Well, if it's slowly taking off, then you've got a bright future to look in front of you. So a little bit of housekeeping as well before Clive comes in. We are now, I'm going to keep doing the total. We are now at 8,490 raised so far for in the Podathon alone. We had a goal of $30,000 this year for fundraising. We're 80% of the way there, and it is 2 months into the fundraising year. We've still got 2 to 3 huge events coming up that are going to really be exciting to stay tuned for. So 8490 right now for the pod. I want to give recognition to another group of donors who donated at various times this week. We have Barry Byrne, who is from London. We have Bill Mader, who is from Greenwood, Indiana. Brady DeGroot from Tulsa, Oklahoma. That's a very American name, Brady DeGroot. We've got Brock Werner, which is, I mean, it's either German or American. Brock Werner. It's the first day of the NFL, and these are some NFL player names.
Yeah, it's a very, very NFL name.
Brock Werner from Chicago, Illinois. We've got Cameron Perry from Corpus Christi, Texas. Charles Coglianese from Denver, Colorado, a suburb of Italy. We've got, of course, our good friend Christian Laufer, who's going to be joining us as part of the not another.
My Chicago Gooners scarf in the background today, so shout out to that group. Just a wonderful group of Arsenal fans.
Nice, you support us. We support you. Christine Martin from Freiburg. I'm thinking that's probably Germany. I'll look it up. And then we have Christopher Davies, who is from a town in Connecticut that is so finely named, Canton, Connecticut. There's restaurants called Canton. There's podcasters called Canton, and then there's Tom's called Canton. And Freiburg is actually a village in Norway. So again, I love seeing like cities and countries. You're going to kind of take the mic for some questions here, because I did way too much talking in the last hour, and I got to pace myself.
Try and give you a little bit of a break and save your voice. 27 hours or 26 more is a pretty long time. So
meanwhile, we just got a text from Aston saying, let Jared talk for a minute.
Yeah, hour one was fantastic. It was a great way to kick off with Gab and Jules, two just wonderful people in the football world who bring a lot of attention to the cause. Us all as Arsenal fans, obviously, we bring it to people in the Arsenal community. Obviously, those guys having a pretty large following just in the football world in general exposes Gooners vs. Cancer to a lot of new people. So a massive thank you again to them for coming on. It was a good time hearing their stories and having a laugh. And really the only way to follow that up in hour two is to have two of what I think are the most brilliant, literally and figuratively, voices in the Arsenal podcasting world.
Do you say two?
I said
now
two.
We've got two.
Yo,
look at these 3 bald heads on the screen at the same time, looking fantastic. And Jared,
3.5.
Jared,
I'm on my way. 3.5.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I didn't mean to introduce you. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but we got to get Clive on. And can I quickly do my intro for Clive? I'm just coming right out at the beginning of the 27 hours and saying I've written these intros. I'm going to read them off the paper. I don't care. I don't care how professional it is. Hi, Clive. Our second guest needs no introduction because I love the man. He's getting one anyways. He's quite literally the voice of reason. You can see and hear him on the Arsenal Vision podcast at the Emirates with his outstanding son on commercials. Please help welcome back to the Gooners Podcast, the one and only Clive Palmer. That wasn't that bad, was it?
Not too bad. I'm quite a quiet man, as you know, Mike.
Yes, and I can't believe I'm actually telling you this. I've told other people this and asked them not to tell you, but last year during the podcast, Clive joined us during our 17
you fell asleep.
hour 17 or 18 he joins us, and I'd had a co-host who had bailed he didn't I make that sound like he bailed, a co-host who couldn't make it, and so it was me and Clive, and I was like, SOS Sophie, I need you right now because I'm lagging, and Clive, I'm interested in everything he's having to say, but this is the worst voice for me at this particular juncture of time where I'm susceptible to getting a little glassy-eyed. So
I have been told my voice can put people to sleep, and I don't take it as a criticism.
Well, it's so great.
Right?
But so this time I want you on hour 2 because I'm bright and bushy-tailed, and
Cool.
and so now Jared,
Anyway, hello Jared.
back
Hey
to you.
FK.
Clive, great to see you. And you're right.
Good
I
to see
think
you, Clive.
you should like it. I think anyone who's ever sat behind a microphone would feel blessed if they were gifted with the voice that you have. And FK is not far behind as well. So
You
this,
can't
this
hear
is
yourself, right?
My daughter's in the chat making fun of me now.
You can't hear yourself, so you just talk. It's no problem.
hour number 2. It's the introduction of the ASMR fans into the Arsenal world. So it's going to be great to have everybody, all the new faces. Go to goonersversuscancer.com to see what this is all about. But with you guys, we did want to focus more on Arsenal. We're going to talk a little bit on the pitch stuff and then kind of move on to you guys as individuals and kind of your love for Arsenal and things you have going on. But early on this season, it's been a little bit of a mixed review. We have 10 points from 12, and some Arsenal fans are really ecstatic with what they're seeing. Some are not as in love with the perceived change in formation and the way we're setting up. And I've seen two sort of routes of thinking. The statistical analytics side, people say, our XG is up, our expected goals conceded is down. It's progress. As soon as it clicks, it's going to work. The other side, the more practical fans that watch the game say, we've conceded more goals than this point last year and we scored less. So how can it be better? And with most things, I think the truth probably lies somewhere in between. But I want to get both of your opinions through this first section of the season, the first 4 games. Clive, I'll come to you first. Give me your general thoughts on what you've seen, and are you happy with the state of Arsenal currently and the trajectory you think they're on?
I think when you walk into a season, you have to think about what are you bringing into that season. So most of us are bringing in last year's wonderful feelings where we all experienced something we didn't expect to experience. And I call it like first date syndrome, right? When that first day, we get a second day, it's got to be like the first one. It's got to be, you know what I mean? But life isn't like that. Not every night is a Saturday night. Sometimes you're at home with the missus, it's a Wednesday night and you just get the takeaway and you're chilling, right? And you're in a different place. So, and so we have to, as fans, we have to adjust our minds to a different season. Why? Why do we have to adjust our minds? Well, you know what? We're in the Champions League. And we're about to find out in the next 2-3 weeks what a Champions League season really looks like and how it forces rotation, how it forces us to look at the extremities of our squad. Over the last 5-6 years, we've had a similar season where we've had games we didn't even want in Europe. So we could try to get back into the Champions League. Now we're in the Champions League. So I'm sorry, for many of us, we've forgotten what that looks like, what that feels like, and what we have to do to prepare ourselves for this new competitive landscape. And I'm learning, well, not learning, I'm remembering. I'm trying to remind other people, actually, that it's a new season. And I say to Elliot, I say to him, I want to get one of those Men in Black neuralizers, the ones that makes you forget things. I want everyone to forget last year because it won't be like that again. It'll be different. And it may be better in some parts, and it may be worse in some parts. But I guarantee you it'll be different because of the competitions we are now involved in. Because the level of focus, the Champions League changes our weeks. It reprioritizes our games. And we're going to get a reminder of that real quick. And if we get to 16 and quarterfinals, trust me, we're going to get a reminder very quickly. And everybody who's playing and where they are in their game and where they are in their maturity, their performance, it's going to matter. It's going to matter a lot, and I think then we just have to wait for those moments. Until we get there, we're doing fine. We're doing fine. But we have to try to erase last year and look at this season as a fresh season.
I think that's a really good point. And like you said, no 2 seasons are the same, but especially not one where you're going to be competing across multiple competitions in the way that we're very fortunate to be this year. And I'll jump over to you here, FK. One thing he said is all of us have fond memories of last year. We watched back the highlights. There's so many great moments that season. If there's any critique that I hear most this year, it's that we haven't seen as much of sort of the free-flowing, aesthetically pleasing football that Arsenal fans, and obviously not just under Arteta, but going back to Arsene Wenger, have grown up seeing. And that's part of when they think of Arsenal, that's what they think of, is that style of play. Do you think our sort of change in setup is going to permanently take that away, or it's just a matter of players acclimating a little bit, getting used to their new teammates, and that's something that we'll sort of progressively see coming more and more as we move through this season?
Without trying to repeat a lot of what Clive has said, I think because he just, when you talk, everyone just listens, right? I'm taking notes here. I mean, look, for me, just on last season, it was extraordinary, right, Jared? We were in a title race that was unexpected. We went on the most joyous ride for 9 months of the season, top of the league for so long. And I think we all remember just how it kind of fell away from us. And I think last season was almost as fun as it was quite a harsh lesson that if you want to compete with this juggernaut that is Manchester City, you kind of need to be perfect on all fronts. And I think maybe that's where a little bit of the nervousness comes around in terms of this season, both from the players, but also from the fans, that we kind of want to just win every game. We were so disappointed with dropping points at home to Fulham. Actually, 10 points out of 12. And, the start that we've had to this season is not that bad. It's just that City are just so bloody perfect. There's no jeopardy about their results, and it kind of papers over anything else that any other team does. So we know the margins are tight. And I think that's where the kind of stress comes from. And the reason why we're not maybe, free-flowing, swashbuckling football that we had at moments last season just yet is because, you're quite right. We've added some players in key positions, and they will take time to kind of get used to the team, the structure, a new manager's instructions, the pace at which we play, the style at which we play. There's also been a lot of football. It's amazing. It feels like it was ages ago, but the World Cup was just a few months ago. Some of the players, in particular Declan Rice, he had a very long season with West Ham, probably didn't get much of a break. And so the players are kind of coming into the mix, and they're going to take just a bit of time to kind of just fine tune what we want to do. Mikel's been trying different things. There's been a lot of criticism about playing Partey out of position, playing right back, and he's trying to experiment. He talked about 38 or 43 different formations in one game. So it's about change. It's about having some optimism. It's about having new players, new systems, new structure under Mikel. But it's also really frustrating that Manchester City just seem to be this well-oiled machine. And despite losing a lot of players, they've brought in some really good talent. They've outspent us again, and they are the standard bearer, Jared. So it's a number of reasons. And again, just to kind of finish on this question, similar to what Clive was saying, there are going to be some low points, some tough points. If you want to compete for the Premier League title, it's not always going to be, roses every week. So there's going to be tough moments. There's going to be moments where you feel that every point you drop is just a bitter, kick in the guts. And it's just about how well we respond. And of course, United to Fulham was just a great response.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think your point's well taken when you talk about the expectation Arsenal fans have. So much of that is dictated by just how good Manchester City is. And the margin for error is so small. When you watch them play, it feels like they're never going to drop points. But we know it'll happen. It's the Premier League. Every year there's upsets, there's results you don't expect. And their time's going to come too, where they're going to drop off a little bit. Their schedule intensifies the way all of ours will once Champions League starts. And we certainly hope that at some point we can spot a chink in the armor of Manchester City, because at times they look just absolutely unbeatable. One thing you mentioned there was, some of the new players fitting in and getting accustomed to playing with one another. So one of the questions we often ask pretty much everybody that comes on the pod, we have a small sample size. We're 1 month into the season. We've played 4 matches. The team's been relatively good by most people's estimations. Who for you is the early player this season that has stood out, whether it be because you think they're the best player or they've just brought more than you expected? I want to get kind of both of your perspectives on this. Clive, I'll come back to you first.
So it is my want that I don't always answer the question, Jared. So so what I will say is I want to get people straight on this, because we talk about last season with rose-tinted glasses, and I'm telling you, lads, look at the form since Anfield 2-2, and that's our recent history. And it wasn't always working. And the reason why it wasn't always working, because people have been watching us on TV and they've been looking at us and looking at ways to stop us. And so when you're a coach, you have to evolve your system. You have to create layers of different ways of playing. And how are you going to do that? By picking all of our favorites to do exactly what we did in the good times last season, or by trying some slightly new tweaks and allowing yourself to have different tools in your toolbox. We expect our manager to have different ways of playing, yet we don't allow him time to develop different ways of playing. I think that's very important. You know, maturity of fan. I talk about this a lot. I'm trying to mature my thinking. You know, trust me, if you could, we can all pick our favorite first 11, and I want it out there for 60 games. That's what I want. But that's not life. Back to first date. That isn't life. Like, life means you're going to have a car strain, you're going to have something go wrong, you're someone out of form, someone lose their confidence, someone find their confidence. You know, and I think that's part of football, that's part of life, that's part of the journey of the season, that's part of the dynamics of the season. And we have to allow that to develop. Last year when Man City were behind us by 8 points, we're not on the City Vision podcast, right? However, they've got a track record of winning. There's less stress around when they drop a point. We drop a couple of points and the world ends. We have to mature and grow up, because it's going to happen. I promise it's going to happen at a time we least expect, and we're going to be traumatized. So we have to mature ourselves a little bit, because we're going into the top table of football. If we're 5 points away from City, there's not many other teams better than us in Europe. That's the truth. So we have to mature our thinking towards that. Do you think our manager wants to win the Carabao Cup, or do you think he wants to win the European Cup? He wants to win the European Cup. And to do that, you have to raise standards. To raise standards, you need to make decisions that we may find uncomfortable. Our new goalkeeper, by the way. We may find that uncomfortable, but I want our manager to raise the standards by a series of actions which do that. If that means chinning people in their contracts, we chin them and we move forward. We get better at buying, and we lift the standards to achieve the expectations that we all have secretly, right? So it's not going to happen by being nicey-nicey. And that's why I want to say that, Jared. Back to your original question. A player that's looked good. I think they're all fine. But I will say one person's had more stress placed upon him from the start of the season. And I think that's probably Saliba. I think he's been stretched out. He's been made chief passer, chief central centre-back. He has had his mate for all the games. I think we've loaded on him post a back injury. And I think he's really responded really, really well, team-wise. And I think he's a crucial piece to this club. You know, so yeah, I think he's not surprised me, but I think he's top class. You know, top class. That's what I want to say.
David Ziegler occasionally becomes David Ziegler. I mean, because when you're a David and you do something really funny or good, you know, you become David to me, because that's just a sign of respect. I mean, leave it to David to come up with a comment like that. Jared, you're saving the barbers, you know. But
not for long. Their time's coming.
Yeah, that's true. That's
it's
quite
going
a forehead.
faster than I'd like. The Arsenal turnaround, I think, has bought me a couple more years. My stress levels come down a little bit over the last 18 months, so I should definitely.
And if you're not feeling better after that, after Clive's, his mantra there. I don't know if mantra is the best word, but that this is why we love Clive, because he will just reassure you, and you're like, yeah, even the hardest core. What's the word for someone that's just never happy about anything?
Pessimistic.
I
guess so. Could take.
I got Sophie once. Sophie wanted to get stuck in. I went onto her show and I went, "Hey, how you doing?" And I got her.
She just melted right off the butter.
This was one of my favorite shows.
She was drawn butter by 20 minutes into the show. Oh man,
and she's one of, I think, everybody's favorites. It's hard to spend any time on a podcast with her. I've had the pleasure of meeting her in person and not just love Sophie. Just absolutely brilliant. Whether you're talking Arsenal or talking about life, she's one of the good ones, and I think we all have a great appreciation for her and kind of everything she brings to the Arsenal community.
Yeah,
and
we'll be seeing a lot of her tomorrow.
Yeah, she'll be joining and co-hosting with Mike for a number of hours overnight. Overnight for me, probably prime hours for her where she is. So that's gonna work out perfectly. But going back to one of Clive's points, and when he said it, I kind of laughed to myself, but at the same time, totally agree. When he talks about fans maturing, I think it's as spot on of a comment as you'll ever hear. And as someone who, like all of you, spends a lot of my time on Twitter following Arsenal fans, at times it seems like the most impossible outcome we could ever see. I think it would be wonderful if people would take a step back and look at the game the way he describes. Unfortunately, it's just not the world we live in a lot of times online. And it's disappointing because there's so many good people who share that sentiment, but there's a whole lot of them out there who, as soon as one ball is kicked out, the world starts collapsing around us. And you see everybody going pretty negatively at a lot of the players. One of the players this year, and that I think has gotten a lot of scrutiny, some of it fair, some of it probably not, is Kai Havertz. I've heard comments about how poor he's been, that he holds the rest of the team back. I've seen a lot saying that we're putting Partey at right back to shoehorn him into the lineup, which I think is well wide of the mark, given that Partey played some at right back at the end of last season when Havertz wasn't even on the squad. When you watch those games, FK, Kai Havertz, do you look at that as a player who's just sort of bedding in with new players around him, new coach, new system, new teammates? Because when I watch it, I'm not nearly as down on him, I think, as a lot of the fans have been. Do you think they're right in that estimation, or do you think he kind of gets a bit of a tough draw since most of the players have been quite good, and when the results aren't bad, we always have to have a scapegoat, and sort of as the new guy that gets thrown in his direction quite often? So give me your thoughts just early on Kai Havertz at Arsenal.
It's a really good question, and I've seen it on shows, obviously, that I do and podcasts that I listen to all the time. Kai Havertz is a big talking point. I think with Kai, the fact that he's come from Chelsea, the fact that he cost us £65 million is, rightly or wrongly, always going to be a bit of a the sort of expectation mark. People kind of expect him to come in and hit the ground running because of the fee and because of where we've got him from. I think his time at Chelsea was a little bit dysfunctional because Chelsea were just awful last season. You can't expect a player to be outstanding in a team that finished 12th and that was largely dysfunctional week after week. I think people have just, expected him to kind of hit the ground running. Now, Mikel's obviously trying him in at that sort of left 8 advanced central midfield position. It's not a position that he's played, in the majority of his time as he's been a footballer, because most of his time he spent sort of up top. He's played out wide on the right and on the left. And so that expectation is there, that tag, that is always going to be there. I feel for him, Jared, if I'm being honest, because I don't think the criticism is fair. I think all players take time to acclimatise. Now, it's also just unlucky for him that Jurrien Timber came in and just flew out of the blocks, and everyone thinks, right, there's a guy that we signed. He didn't play in Mikel's system. He's been playing in 3-4 different positions, and he seems to have just it looks like he's been here for years. But I do feel for Kai because he's in that role where, central part of the team. He's a bit of a connector, that sort of pre-assister where he has to be familiar with his left wide forward. He's got to be familiar with his left back. He's got to be familiar with the man playing up front and even maybe the guy behind him. And if you look at the 6-7 games that he's played, if you include all the pre-season stuff, he's played with 3 different left backs. He played with Zinchenko, he's played with Timber, he played with Tomiyasu. I think he might have even had a bit of game time with Tierney. Out wide on the left, he had Martinelli, he had Trossard. Up front, he's had Jesus, he's had Nketiah, and behind him, he had Partey playing once in the lone 6 position, Rice playing there, Jorginho playing there in pre-season. So, he just needs to get to know his teammates. He needs to get to know the role that Mikel wants to play, which isn't his usual up front role. And once he kind of understands, once he's able to anticipate the movement, or when a player is going to move, when a player is going to want the ball, when a player is going to sort of run in behind, these automatisms that we always talk about, he will be so much better as a footballer. So you just have to give him time. You can't deny his natural talent. He's always been a talented boy since a very young age. Described as a mercurial talent when he was playing in Germany. Chelsea obviously invested heavy in him. Didn't have the best of times. I think a goal or two would help his confidence. But I also think, Jared, in closing, Kai Havertz is probably one of those players, and I'm sure guys on the Arsenal Vision podcast have said this before. If you watch him on television and you just follow, your eyes are following where the ball is, you probably miss a lot of what he does. So if you kind of watch the game again, or if you're at the stadium and you can see him finding intelligent spaces in between the lines, he runs in behind from time to time. His work rate off the ball is really good. His defensive numbers that we all analysed before he joined the club as a presser, as a defender, being a forward, are really, really good numbers. And so, look, I think the best is obviously yet to come. And Mikel is adamant that he wants him to play in this team, some sort of role. So I think the criticism is harsh. I do think that Arsenal fans are perfectly entitled to call what they see, and some people are going to want him just to score goals. And if he doesn't score goals, they're just going to be upset by that. But I think in time he's going to be good. So I would advise, invest in stocks while they're low in Kai Havertz.
Yeah, you and I are in complete agreement on that. And I think you made a number of good points there. And a lot of it, too, it just comes from the comparison around. You mentioned Jurrien Timber coming in and just seamlessly fitting in, and every player can't do that. Similarly with Declan Rice, he's come in and been brilliant. And as soon as fans see one player do it, the thought is, well, that should now be the standard for every player that comes in week one, first touch of the pitch, that you're top level and you're brilliant. And unfortunately, it just doesn't always work out that way. Additionally, we've seen Ben White play it right back. He's able to overlap Saka. Odegaard moves out on that side. And those three have a very good link up and understanding of where each other are going to be. And as you said with Havertz, he just hasn't had that stability and positioning. I think that's the one thing that Zinchenko brings that's most important. He obviously brings a lot, is stability to that side of the pitch. When he comes in and he sort of takes up that midfield role, things looked better. And the more game time those guys get together, I think we're going to see the balance from us being much stronger on the right to it being a much more balanced attack than we've seen thus far. And like you said, that just takes time. That's not something you can snap your fingers and have come together as quickly as people would like. But I think it is there to be had. Mike, go right ahead.
Jared, how did we get to where we are now in this world of football fandom where, I mean, so little time is given? I mean, it's just, I mean, you've seen the tweets about, imagine if, who had the slow start at Arsenal? Dennis Bergkamp, Thierry Henry. I mean, or Bergkamp was about how he, was playing at his former team. But like, it's just insanity. I've done a lot of promotion for this podcast this week, and some of those pods were podcasts with people from other clubs, multi-club podcasts. Some of them were other styles of podcasts, and just on Twitter in general, the people have made their mind up about Kai Havertz's Arsenal career. Now, there is some history to look at, and it's his Chelsea career. There's some other history to look at, which is his Leverkusen career, which is completely in opposition to his Chelsea career. But I mean, it's just my father-in-law has a statement that he uses called "wait to worry," and it's really hard in sports because it's this instant gratification world that we live in right now. But I mean, it's just Fabio Vieira is starting to show us some of the things that Edu and Arteta might have seen in him last year. A small sample size of performances, sure, but I mean, we don't want to fall behind in the in the league. But it's not even just I'm not happy with how he's done so far. It's he was an awful purchase. Mm-hmm. He is finished, and Arteta is going to be finished because that's the hill he's going to die on. He's played 4 games. I mean, how did we get here?
So you need to change your Twitter feed, mate, because that's just you're doing your head in. All right, so Jared, do you mind if I have a little go and have a?
No, I would love it.
I think so. When there is uproar like this is what I tend to do. I try to look at why. So one of my many sayings is you can never fool the punter. The punter's not always wrong, right? So why is this? So if I said to you, all of you, what is the left 8 position to you? What does it mean to you? What is the style of that position? We probably have a debate. You probably say, Trossard could do it. Smith Rowe could do it. You mentioned Vieira, Mike. By the way, I saw him last year trying to do it, and he couldn't do it.
The Southampton game was a disaster.
I was there, and we all know what happened in that game. right? So some people say Declan Rice could do it, which he can do it, no doubt about it. What they do it in their style. So Granit Xhaka did it in his style. Granit Xhaka used to be an 80-touch, 90-touch player playing in the deep six. Went to the left 8, we call it for discussion. Went down to 40 touches. Off the ball roll. 7 goals, 7 assists. 2 of those goals came in the testimonial game, last game of the season. Let's get it real, right? Let's get it real. So that position was defined by a strong personality in Granit Xhaka. He made it a ball progression position, do it in 1, do it in 2, round the corner, disappear into the box, second forward. That's how he defined the role. So that role means different things to all Arsenal fans, right? Just say that. We can debate that role, what it looks like. Then Kai Havertz comes along. He's a player that's not easy to define. Is he a 10? Is he a second striker? Is he a right 10? Or is he a left 10 stroke 8, how we're trying to play him? It's up for debate. So you mix the two together. You say a position which we would all debate what it looks like. Then you bring a player into that position that we'd all debate what is his best position. Is he a centre forward? Is he a post-up forward? Is he over the top of the press guy? Is he someone who wants pressing them first? So you mix the two together and you have to then give time for the cake to be baked, for him to define the role by his play style. I think I know this is why people are struggling. So what you do then as a fan, you say, okay, Granit Xhaka, good defender. He scored goals, bonus. Kai Havertz, good forward. Not sure if he can defend. What's happened? He can defend probably better than Granit Xhaka, and he can't score as much as Granit Xhaka right now. He's 1 goal, 1 assist away from being the answer, because his ability to cover the kilometers, the ability to win the ball, to read the second ball, to cover the distances. I'm sorry, it's better than a 30-year-old we let go. But around the box at the moment, he's indecisive, not sure of his movements, not sure of his partners, as FK alluded to, that we lack stability. And so when Zinchenko and Jesus come into this team, we're going to get a chance to really judge what he can do in a comfortable environment. And I can't wait to see it, because I think that position was limited before. And I firmly believe the ceiling of this team, and it's going to sound dramatic, every other area we know about, that one position is the one that's got the most ceiling on it. And the players that are going to drop into that position is going to be the one that's going to take us to the furthest. Because everything else, I think we've seen the potential of around the pitch. It's only going to grow. But that one position, I think, is unknown.
I think that's wonderfully put, and kind of a good spot to cut off the Arsenal section here, because I do want to give Mike a chance here. We've got some housekeeping stuff we do every hour. We've got prizes to give away. We've got a number of people pouring in questions for you two, and I want to make sure we get to some of those this hour. So, Mike, if you want to jump in, get some of that going, and we'll make sure we get a chance to get the questions in as well.
Thanks. Yeah, we're starting this portion of the pod a little early, but that's because, as I suspected we would in this particular segment, we got a ton of questions from the chat, and we want to get to that. Speaking of the chat, 140 people in the chat right now. It's fantastic. Thank you for joining us. Means we've got some folks here who don't normally come in when we go live. Let's just say that's an understatement. But please go to goonersvcancer.com. As the scroll at the bottom says, you can learn more about the podcast, about the charity, about how to donate. You can use that page to donate, enter yourself in all the rest of the prize drawings. And so we're doing something at the end of each segment called the 4 questions, which is normally done, in the springtime at my mother's dining room table, but we're doing them every hour on the hour right now. So the 4 questions begin with your big 6 in no particular order. Who are your top 6 in the Premier League this season, Clive?
City, Arsenal, United, Liverpool, Spurs.
You can see the pain in him as he says that. This is really the interesting one right here.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say Aston Villa.
Wow. Okay.
Over Brighton is interesting.
Yeah, I think Brighton are excellent, but I think Brighton are going into an unknown season.
Yeah, that's true. With a lot of
we're going to
Europe.
find out a lot more. Right,
FK, your top 6.
City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Newcastle, and that lot up the road.
All right,
the squeeze into 6th. Yeah, is that 6?
That's 5.
Oh, shit. Let's go with. I said United, right? Nope. City, Arsenal, Liverpool.
I didn't hear you
United.
say United.
United. Yeah, United. Yeah.
Okay. By the way, the first Podathon that we did top 4 and bottom 3. This was in 2021 before the 2021-22 season. We had 2 people pick Arsenal in the top 6. That was after our 8th place finish, our second consecutive 8th place finish. So that shows you how far we've come. The winner of the Ballon d'Or, FK, we'll start with you on that one.
It's got to be Erling. I mean, what a season he had. What a machine he is. His numbers. I know Messi's the favourite and whatnot, but Erling Haaland, the impact he's had at Manchester City is phenomenal. And I think he will get it, and I think he would deserve it.
Yeah. Well, we've had 3 answers to the question and 3 different answers to the question so far. Clive, who do you I have a feeling you're about to put someone into the lead.
Yeah, it's good. It's going to be Messi because he completed football. And
he did. Yeah, he did.
And that's it.
Yeah, joined MLS.
And the world watched it, and none of us will ever forget that final.
That reminds me of a friend of mine I met once who told me that he completed Pornhub.
Another thing, and whether it's right or wrong, the Premier League doesn't get the respect it deserves at the global awards level.
That's very true.
Otherwise, Thierry Henry would have a Ballon d'Or, not Pavel Nedved. Yeah, and it just doesn't get the respect, and because I'm afraid these global institutions and UEFA institutions, they don't like the financial superiority of the Premier League.
Well, yeah, there's a chip on their shoulder when it, and the way that they can influence it is very small and few and far between. But this is one of them.
This is one of them. We can just stop them having the best player in the world, as well as all the best managers, and all the most money, and all the best TV viewing figures, all the best financials. We can't give the best player in the world. We just give it to anybody else. That's at the senior level, the junior level, the golden boy level. It's been a consistent theme for many, many years, right? And it's funny how there's not a single tweet of a noise coming from these institutions about the Saudi involvement in the game. Because what that does is it weakens the Premier League, and they are happy with that because they want to see more democracy, shall we say? I'm not sure that's the right word, but across the European landscape. So,
and it's unfortunate because other than not voting for Premier League players in the Ballon d'Or, I mean, UEFA and FIFA are just, they're spotless.
It's a podcast, Mike. Maybe I should come onto your podcast.
There's nothing else you can say negatively about those organizations.
You know what I'm like once I get started.
All right, first Premier League coach to get the sack this season. Clive, we'll start with you.
Oh my God, I don't think about negative things, right?
That's true. Well, depending on who it is, it could be a positive thing. Although,
crikey, I can't even think of anybody that's. I can't think of any of the teams at the moment. Go FK first while I think about it.
Okay, FK.
That is a really difficult question. I mean, Sean Dyche can't hang around that long, can he? I mean, Everton are garbage. I'm bracing myself for that Goodison Park defeat next week. Yeah, I mean, listen, I'm going to go left field. Go for a shock, okay? This is going to shock a lot of people, and will probably tell you all you need to know about my football knowledge. But I think Erik ten Hag is in for a tough time at Man United this season, and they are, 1 or 2 results always away from chaos and panic, and Anthony now with his off the field misdemeanors. I mean, alleged misdemeanors. I can't believe they've got Maguire and Evans at the back. I mean, it's comical. So I think, he could be in trouble. Maybe. Why not? Why not Erik ten Hag? Back to you, Clive.
I think he's 16-1, and which is like 8th joint favorite. Which, I mean, that's only going to get
Wow.
Those odds are only going to get shorter the longer this continues. But Clive, any?
Who's the Sheffield United manager? Is it Paul Higginbottom?
Yeah, Higginbottom.
I'll go with him. I think, but I say that with no conviction because I agree with FK. Actually, I think of all the roles, Ten Hag is the one that's under the most microscope. Yeah. It's not because they lost to us and they had a 2-week international break for us all to think about them. There are things happening off the pitch in that club. There are things happening regarding him in his press conferences. If I'm him, I'm getting a PR guy real quick because you cannot come out after games and be doing that to your players and then expect them to run about for you the week after.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen. That's not how you manage people. That's not how you bring people on the journey with you. So I can see problems there, but I can see problems in the executive. So who's going to make the decision?
Yeah.
Yeah, and what's the succession plan? There is none at Manchester United. There's so many things wrong at that club at the moment.
It's delicious.
Beyond the points.
So the final.
It's another podcast, Mike. I'll come on through that one as well.
Final question is your big surprise. This is just any concept or anything that you would think wouldn't necessarily be, oh, well, yeah, that's obvious. Tell me something I don't know about world football between now and the end of the season, now and next June. Just something that you would think wouldn't be that popular of opinion. FK.
Oh, Clive, you go first on this one.
Something just give you an unpopular opinion about.
That unpopular opinion would be a good way of saying it. Something that wouldn't be like, yeah, I mean, like saying that Holland will win the Golden Boot or something like that. Would not be in this category because I think everyone kind of doesn't think that's much of a stretch.
I've got a couple of things spinning around my head that I don't even want to say out loud because I don't want to wish them to an existence. But I think the Arsenal goalkeeping discussion is one that I think is going to be unbelievably interesting. And I don't mind which way it goes, and I think there's some innovative thinking going on at Arsenal regarding this position. And there's potential for real innovation. And
that's in like having two goalies playing at the same time?
Well, not so much that, but having our historic structures around how we decision and select that position, I think are about to change because the game has changed. Onana had 59 touches in the last game. He's basically an outfield player. I think Havertz had 30-something, right? So when you're a top team and you have 55 games at the top level, I think that position, how we view it, is going to change significantly. And it's going to be something, again, we're going to have to get used to. And Ramsdale may not say suffer, but may have to adjust what success looks like for him in that position and how many games he plays. And I think this is going to be something going forward. I think it's going to be commonplace for the top teams only, for the top teams.
Okay, so, I mean, I agree with that. The big surprise will be, is it Raya becomes our number one?
Or will there be a number one?
Okay, so we'll call it split goalkeeping duties. All right, FK?
It's such a hard question, but I'm going to say this. I don't think we're going to win the league this year, and I think Arteta has to prove himself in Europe, and I think we will surprise a lot of people in the Champions League. I don't want to say we're going to go all the way and do it because things like this come back to bite you on the bum, but it would not surprise me if we were to get to Wembley. And of course, Mikel Arteta, as manager and coach, won 12 at Wembley. I mean, that would be insane. And the other thing, just I was thinking about, Mike, I've been talking about this for some time. I think Martin Odegaard has entered the chat about how good he is compared to the likes of Cesc and Mesut Ozil on his day. And I reckon Odegaard's return this season could be better than Cesk's best season at Arsenal. So, and that's some claim because I grew up watching Cesc, one of my favourite players of all time. And I think Odegaard's in that league. So, yeah, his numbers are going to be phenomenal. 2 for the price of 1.
Beautiful, and that way, whichever one doesn't come true, I'll just cut it out of the
Thanks.
podcast. All right, so we're going to do the quick draw now, and then we'll spend the rest of the hour, and we'll have a brief, hopefully a brief kind of crossover, as we call it in the business, with Dave Seeger, who's our next guest.
Oh.
You both know Dave, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Of course.
It's always
Legend.
nice to have a little crossover where we have everyone on together, and then we say goodbye to you guys, and we pick up with him. So our total as it stands right now for Podathon week, let's just call it that for simplicity. Our total for Podathon week has reached $8,900, which is absolutely fantastic. We've gotten some very generous donations in the last few minutes. You are entered into the prize draw. Thank you to everybody who has donated. And our prize for this hour is a Ruth Beck art size A3 print. Let me see if I can get one of these, because I want you guys to see the size of it.
Disappears from screen. Leaves Jared alone.
So Ruth will be joining us in our artist hour tomorrow, but Ruth is just an amazing artist. Her stuff really resonates with me and to everybody who I've brought these to when we do live fundraising, and it's always a treat to be able to give these away as an incentive for donating. Scenes of Highbury, scenes of N5 and N7 and all of that. So we're going to be giving away a Ruth Beck art piece, and it is going to go to the winner of this drawing. And this is where the technical aspect of this gets a little funky. But I'm going to share the screen so that everyone can see that I am not favoring anybody. So the draw for the first Ruth Beck A3 size piece of artwork has been won by, I knew this was going to happen. All right, Seth Thomas. Now, look, you donate a lot of money. You're very generous. You're gonna come up in the drawing, but it is completely and totally random. So Seth has now won his prizes, and Seth is in the chat. I'm glad glad he thinks Ruth Beck is the best, because he's just added another piece of Ruth Beck art to his collection. So congratulations, Seth. Now, what I can tell you is we're not going to see Seth's name anymore, because he has won one category A prize and one category B prize, and we've instituted that rule. So Seth in 2 hours has maxed out, and we appreciate Seth's donation. And now I can send the two things that he's won in the same package and save on postage. So I mean, it's fantastic. So this is wonderful, by the way. Both the artist, the donor, and the winner all in the chat at the same time, communicating with each other. That's what we love to see. So thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Seth. And thank you to everybody else. And I promise in the next hour, we will have a different winner. All right. So now we're going to get into user questions, as I like to call them here. And we're going to start with the one that we just received. Kevin Demsek. By the way, I'll say it again. Kevin, your generosity is appreciated. You are fantastic. I've met you a number of times, and thank you for the super chat. Quick note, if you are inclined to super chat, which is a way of showing generosity, it's also a way of highlighting your question and generally getting it read. Do us a favor and donate that same amount of money to goonersvcancer.com directly, so that YouTube doesn't take 40% of it. And then just send us your comment with super chat in all caps, and we'll read it for sure, no matter what. But again, thank you, Demsek, and the proceeds of all of the super chats for this podcast and for every podcast that we do all go to the charity. We're going to go we're going to alternate between you on these user questions. So FK, who do you see as the backup to Saka on the right?
I'd love to see Reece Nelson get more game time. I wouldn't mind seeing Gabriel Jesus play out right wing as well when Saka needs a rest, if he ever gets a rest. I mean, he's played about a gazillion games in a row, and Eddie Nketiah's doing a fine job up front. So yeah, either of those two. But Reece for me, let's get some minutes from him.
That's a great question. And so far, you can't complain with what Reece has done with his playing time. I mean, he's making the most out of very little so far. So, all right, Clive, let's pick one for you here. This is a good one from Somnus Wanderers. What's your feelings on ESR and what his role will be? I think we may have actually talked about this, FK, at Canton's event. So It'll be interesting to get your take on this.
Oh dear. He's got work to do, right? He's got work to do. We talk about raising the standard, and he's got to raise his standard to get in his team. And I'm not sure where he's going to be. Again, it comes back to lack of clarity of player versus what's his best role for him as well. Football talent-wise, he has it. He definitely does. But I think he needs, when he gets his chance, which he will get next month, he has to go well for him. There was a period, very short period ago when Trossard was our best player in pre-season. He's kicking it and he's doing all the stuff. He played that one start. Was it against Fulham? Was it
Fulham? Yeah.
And he tracked the ball like a trampoline, and suddenly no one's calling for him anymore. And it's a harsh world out there. It really is harsh. We've got short memories, and but that can go both ways, right? It can turn very, very quickly, or we can go against very, very quickly. So there are a number of players in that attacking midfield area that we are developing, and Smith Rowe is one of them. The problem is with him, the player. He has to execute and deliver. It's not with the management, it's with him. When he gets opportunity, he has to do it. No questions asked.
What I did see from him, I mean, at the Barcelona game in LA, I mean, it was very notable how once he came on the pitch, he looked like a man possessed. It's preseason. It's, he's in the raft of substitutes that comes in the second half of a preseason game. But I mean, I was left completely convinced that he was working his way back into this club, and that, he wasn't putting his head down and sulking, and he may not be putting his head down and sulking, but it surprised me how little, if any, game time he's had in the 4 Premier League games.
It's coming, Mike. It's coming.
PSV is going to get some minutes, you think?
It's coming. We do too many games in too short a period of time.
Okay.
And he knows he's fighting for a place. Yeah. He knows he's fighting for his place. And with the upcoming cup games starting to come in, he's going to get his opportunity. And the bad news, as we always say, is if a guy has one bad game, they get put down. But as Clive said there, he's going to have his opportunity. And we saw recently with Fabio Vieira, if you put together 1 or 2 very good performances, you're going to earn your spot and get some minutes. So,
can I just say something there, Jared? Just to clarify, we've gone through the first block of games, and everyone's playing once a week. And so you end up playing with a narrow group of players because you just do, right? So we tried to put a couple of extra players in, and people weren't happy because some people weren't playing. We're going to the next block of games where we're going to be playing 3 times in 7-8 days, but consistently. So all the people worried about Smith Rowe not playing and Trossard not playing and Vieira not playing, they're all going to play. Kivio's playing, Tomiyasu's playing. They're all going to play. And after the next block of games, for next international break, we're going to have a much better view of the whole squad. Until now, I'm afraid people on the fringes, they're not going to get all their minutes, but they will do soon. And that's why I say the problem's with the player. They got to do it when they get their opportunity.
Okay, perfect. We're going to do one more question, but before we do that, we have reached the 8 p.m. UK hour, and that means we're going to bring on our next guest for a bit of a crossover here. You know him, you love him. I'll do my formal introduction once we officially start his hour. But Dave Seeger, it's great to have you joining us today. How you been, my friend?
I'm very well. Evening, gentlemen.
Snazzily dressed.
Illustrious company I join.
Good to see you, Dave.
So we're going to do one more user question for, and I think it's FK's turn on this one. It's a bit controversial, I guess. Peter Colson says, "Oh no, this isn't the controversial one. Sorry." He says, "My big fear is that the City will go unbeaten." I guess that would be a bit controversial. Invincibles is the only title they are missing. Are we the only team that can beat them? I know what Clive would say because he's already basically said they're going to drop points. It's inevitable. But dropping points and losing, I guess, are 2 different things. FK, is there a threat to go?
I don't think they're going to go unbeaten. I think secretly, as the run goes on for them the start of the season, they might start to believe it. But I think the Premier League is so relentless and so unforgiving. I think they'll slip up when they least expect it, and then the schedule is going to be grueling again. Whether it's us that beats them, Mike, it'd be nice to beat Manchester City, wouldn't it? in a serious competition. It may be us, it may not be us, but I don't think they're going to do it. I think the Premier League is just far too unforgiving for that. So fingers crossed.
All right, beautiful. That's what I wanted to hear. That's what we pay you the big bucks for. All right, so thank you for those user questions. FK, Clive, it's been a fantastic hour. I absolutely appreciate you guys coming on. Jared, thank you for alleviating my voice a little bit during the hour. You're 35 times the host that I am. I mean, you dress nicer, you speak better, you're more composed. So
yep, I'm glad you said it.
Yeah. Well, look, if there's one thing I know how to do, it's not think I'm better than anyone else at anything. But the way that we can see you, reach you. Let's see if I can find this now. Oh no, wrong one. On Twitter, Clive PAFC, Arsenal Vision. Where else can we find you on a day-to-day basis without giving your address away?
I don't do. I do the vision mostly. I do a couple of little things I'm doing, like a bit of coach's voice stuff. I do a bit of that, which I really enjoy actually, because the professionals are on it and they scare me. so that's really good. And I do a bit with Tom. Not much else really. The vision, Elliot keeps me busy. You know what it's like.
Well, and outside the Emirates with your son, please give him my best. You have other kids, I think, but
yeah,
not that I've met and embraced. He's a special kid. He reminds me a lot of my own son, which is why I like him so much. And next time we're at the pub at the same time, I will find you. Yeah,
it's good to see you, mate, and keep well, right? You're looking good.
You, and FK, we could see FK at FCon Age,
FConage, that's the one.
And at Latte Firm, of course. You do late night shows, you do spaces, you do lots of tweeting, and it's always fun to interact with you.
Thank you, my friend, and good luck with the rest of this 25 hours now. What you're doing is fantastic, Mike. So privileged to be on, and like Clive says, you get scared on the coach's voice. I get scared when I'm on with him. So yeah, it's touche, my friend.
Thanks.
But thank you, Mike.
Now you got to make sure, because I think there's one in New York and one in LA and in London, and we're going to be talking about this with Dave. But the Sheffield United game, right after the Sheffield United game, we all got to make a beeline for the Armory for Dave and Jacob's book signing. So if you stay tuned to the pod after you're out of the studio, you'll learn a lot more about that. But we're all going to be in London all at the same time again, and we got to make a special thing happen. So thanks a lot, gentlemen, for coming on.
Pleasure.
Dave,
nice to see you.
Good luck.
See you guys.
Thank you, boys. Enjoy, Dave. Thank you, Jared. Take care. Bye for now.
Righty.
Hey Gooners, this is Alan Smith.
This is Kevin Campbell.
Lee Dixon.
Colin Lewin.
It's Gary Lewin.
Charles Watts.
Dan Potts.
James Benge.
Danny.
Tom from the Gooner Talk here.
Simon Collins, you may know me from the Evening Standard.
You may know me for my time at Arsenal.
You may know me from Arsenal or even the Highbury squad.
From Birdcat Wonderland.
Being that physio, sat on the bench next to Arsenal with my rubber gloves on.
The former Arsenal physio.
The Emirates press box, from writing, from Twitter.
From goal.com, from Twitter, from YouTube.
Football is the beautiful game, and it brings us all together.
Sometimes there are things even more important than wins and losses.
And yes, even transfers.
Every 30 seconds, someone in this world gets diagnosed with blood cancer.
The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society works towards curing blood cancers
and provides support to families currently dealing with these diseases.
Gooners vs Cancer was started in 2017
by a lifelong Gooner who lost his father to leukemia way too young.
Since 2017, Gooners v Cancer has raised
over $75,000 for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
And we need your help to keep the fundraising going in this year's campaign.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
Every donation helps.
No matter the size.
And every donation enters you into the Gooner raffle,
where you have a great chance to win amazing Arsenal prizes,
including game tickets, stadium tours,
signed men and women shirts,
and maybe a retro signed shirt by yours truly, Lee Dixon.
Me, yours truly.
Yours truly, Super Kev Campbell.
So much more.
It's easy to take part.
Just go to www.goonersvcancer.com
and donate directly to the charity.
Pick the raffle prizes you want to enter to win.
And wait for the drawings at the end of the campaign.
Again, that's www.goonersversuscancer.com.
We all know that victory grows out of harmony.
Victory grows out of harmony.
Victory grows out of harmony.
With your help, we'll be victorious against blood cancer once and for all.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you for your support.
Thanks for your support.
Thanks for your support.
Thank you for your support.